Well, good afternoon. Today feels more like, tax day than it does signing day. Scrambling the last few days. It's unlike any recruiting period that I've ever been involved in. Recruiting is about identifying, evaluating. It's about logistics, and it's about a desire to build relationships with student athletes. And you do that over a long period of time. And so when you're announcing a class, this is the culmination of, in some instances, 18 months to 2 years work. I'm really proud of my staff, my football staff, support staff, and the university. Everybody is all in when it comes to recruiting here at LSU, from our president to our athletic director, all the way down to the student assistant that is driving the golf cart around on, every visit. The photo shoot that goes late at night. I mean, I could go on and on. It takes a village, truly, and that's incredible here that we have that kind of commitment to this large endeavor. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, this is a new landscape that we are in recruiting. And new, when I say it's not just about finding the right fit academically. It's not just about finding the right fit where you can develop holistically and graduate and play for a championship. It's about what the most money I can get. And that's unfortunate. But it's the world we live in. And you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to realign and be prepared. We have a class that is going to be represented in, somewhere near 24, 25. There is still more that we think that is going to be added to this class in terms of freshmen. But many of those were committed prior to their senior year and stayed committed to us. 9 out of 10 of them. We did lose a few of them, and it wasn't because we didn't recruit those players and offered them the opportunity to develop here holistically in all the areas that I just mentioned. But we are in a new world, and so we had to pivot, realign, and find how we could best continue to build this class. So as I've always said, it begins with recruiting the state of Louisiana. And in this class, it will again be represented largely from the state of Louisiana. We will have the number one player in the state of Louisiana at the running back position, and we're excited about him. Certainly Harlem Berry is a great player. We'll have 10 players from the state of Louisiana in this class. And again, that's pulling your base. That's really doing the job. And we feel like we did a great job of getting fit and talent at this flagship university here at LSU. Certainly across the board, we want to stay in this footprint. So you're going to see players from Texas and Georgia and Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and we went up to Indiana and got a player from the Midwest as well. So I think overall this is the finest class that I have signed. I think it points to the work that the entire staff has done over the past 18 months in putting together an outstanding class. And regardless of what happened over the last week, all these guys wanted to be here at LSU and representing LSU and wanting to be part of this and wanting to be part of a championship is much more important to me than who didn't want to be here at LSU. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So, again, many, many thank yous to the number of people on my staff and at the university that were tireless in their work in recruiting, and certainly the university in itself, and our president who was part of this, and Scott Woodward, J.R. Belton, who's our heads up our recruiting team, Austin Thomas, Frank Wilson, key players in this entire recruiting effort. I want to thank them as well. So each player in particular, I'd like to just give a little bit of a quick synopsis on each one, and then we'll get to questions. But I'll start with alphabetical. Aiden Anding out of Ruston High School, we see as an elite corner, and also a specialist from Ruston. As you know, championship level football program. Love his traits and his athletic ability, and a guy that can come in and really strengthen the corner position. Dylan Battle is another player for us that fulfilled the defensive tackle position, heavy-handed, physical inside. Bo Davis really liked his ability to disrupt at the defensive tackle position. I think we all know about Harlem Berry out of St. Martin's Episcopal School, elite player, can do many things for you. As a guy that played both ways in high school, can impact the game as a guy coming out of the backfield, catching the football, running the football, special teams. He was elite on defense. This is an elite player that can impact our roster right away. Brett Bordelon, we know his brother is here. Brett is an outstanding offensive lineman out of Newman High School. We're excited to get to work with him. Physically strong, mature to come in right away and apply that physicality on the offensive line, which we desperately need, and has great flexibility. Could play guard, could play center. Jaden Breaker, we think, is emerging as a star linebacker. I mean, his ascent has been quick and mediocre. It's been that kind of player that has jumped off the page in terms of his status. Really just love the way he plays. He's fast, he's physical, he diagnoses extremely well, and he plays the position with great length. He's 6'3", 217 pounds. That's the kind of body frame we're looking for, with our outside backers. He's going to be, from our standpoint, a great fit here. Jacob Bradford, the more you watch Jacob Bradford, you see his physicality on the field. He plays a physical brand of football. He can line up at the corner position, the slot position, the safety position. Love his versatility, but more importantly, love the way he plays the game. Brandon Brown, another defensive tackle for us, was somebody that Bo has had his eyes on for a number of years. Another guy, but love his quickness. A little bit of a different player than Dylan. Quick first step. More like first step quickness like JVR Suggs. Really love his ability to pass rush, but a good presence inside as well. But love his physicality, but his quickness really jumps off the film. Carius Kern, physically imposing, 6'4", 330 pounds. One of the stronger offensive linemen that I've recruited in some time. He is physically strong. At the point of attack, he dominates his opponents. If you just turn on his film, he absolutely dominates his opponent. He is physically ready to play in the SEC right now. We'll have to see how the other things come together, but he is physically ready to play. He's a special player. Teron Francis is just ascending each and every game that he plays. Loved his film over the last couple of weeks, making plays and playing fast and free. And excited about another Edna Carr player in our program. They've done nothing but excel here at LSU. CJ, Jim Coley, very versatile athlete, extremely physical athlete at the safety position. And you can see by his size, he's 6'3", 212 to 215 pounds. This is a guy that can play close to the line of scrimmage, but he's athletic enough that can play off the hash. So we've got a really interesting prospect here in terms of a freshman coming in that is probably going to get bigger. And look, he's going to put himself in a position to succeed with us. J.D. LaFleur obviously is a legacy player for us. His dad played here. I think many know that. Big, physical, 6'6", 245 pounds, but also has soft hands and can catch the football. Again, I think he gives us that big presence that we wanted from an inline player, but certainly can catch the football for us as well. J.T. Lindsey might be one of the hottest players in the country, especially at the running back position. He continues to show himself as his team just keeps moving through the playoffs now into the semifinals. I think it's the semifinals, isn't it? Yeah, they're in the semis. Just has had an incredible year, and he is an electric back. We welcome him into our backfield, and we have somebody that we're so excited about, and he's had an incredible year. Walter Mathis, another outstanding defensive tackle out of Calvary Day School, very coveted player throughout the country. Love his physicality, love his motor. Every play is, for him, just the way he has put forth the effort in every single play. Love the way he plays the game. Tyler Miller, very talented offensive lineman, the best one in Mississippi. Gives us the versatility with a big physical offensive lineman. Could play tackle, could play guard. Really love his feet, the way he bends, and will be a great addition. Keelan Moses, locally, obviously battled some injuries this year, but an extremely gifted player. A guy that could play either side of the ball. He'll fit in very nicely in Blake Baker's linebacker room. Great character, and we just think he's a great fit for us here at LSU. DJ Pickett, arguably the number one corner in the country. I don't even know if it's an argument. We believe he's hands down the best corner in the country. Incredible length at 6'4", 180 pounds. I don't know that I've ever felt that there is a lockdown corner, but he's about as close as there's a lockdown corner in the country. It's DJ Pickett. And his offensive film might be as good, if not better, if you've ever watched him. So this is an elite player that we're excited to have in our roster. Charles Ross II, again, the superlatives are such that not only does he get the game of football and have great awareness where he plays, he is one of the fastest linebackers, if not the fastest linebacker in the country. And that's proven by what he's done in track and field. This guy is lightning, and can't wait to get him into Blake's defense. He will be a difference maker. Damian Shanklin, an edge player with an incredible attitude of excitement and energy, and reminds us a lot of Swin in terms of his energy and excitement. Brings that in, and he's an elite pass rusher, so we welcome him and excited about him. Jace Thomas, obviously, his season cut short. Destrehan also vying for a championship. But very cerebral, very smart, athletic, and will come down and hit you. That's what we're looking for, somebody that can play the ball and also be a great run support guy. Zach Weeks, as you all know, this will be the third Weeks brothers in the program. And look, the only way you get three brothers is if you recruit them individually, as They are, and they love their experience in the program to have three brothers because they just talk to each other. And all three of them here, we're excited about that. And, Zach is an incredible athlete. And I kid the other two that he's the best of the three. And, of course, you can imagine how that goes. But great versatility and an extremely gifted athlete, and we're excited. Zion Williams is... you talk about a space heater. He is massive. He's physical at the point of attack. He's 340 pounds, and he doesn't even look it. He's a guy that could play at that weight. And now you're talking about a defensive line with depth, size, physicality. That's what it looks like, gentlemen, in the SEC. We're putting the bodies, we're putting the men together to put together the defense in terms of what it should look like. And then Philip Wright, who is just lightning. He is so fast, athletic, tough. I love his toughness, his mindset, the way he plays the game. He doesn't avoid contact. He goes up and catches the football, and really excited about his presence here as well. And again, we think we're still going to be announcing some more as they come in a little bit later today. So thank you for your patience and listening to me talk about these fine young men. Today's their day. They get to listen to this press conference. So I wanted to be able to say a few words about them and who they are and how excited we are. We'll welcome, I think, 16. Is that right, JR? 16 of these players will come in as mid-years. And have graduated early, and I think we all understand what an incredible accomplishment that is, to graduate early from high school. And so bringing 16 of these guys in will definitely impact our roster, and we're excited about that. So with that, we'll open up to questions.
Coach, you spoke about this being kind of like unlike any recruiting cycle you've ever been a part of, and just the new world we're living in. I'm just curious if maybe what's transpired with this class has maybe altered your thinking about how you want to approach recruiting freshman classes in the future. Just maybe speak on that a little bit.
Well, I think you could make the case that you just go out through the entire year and you raise money. Right, that's one. And look, I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but one side of it could say, hey, let's just go raise money the entire recruiting season and get X, and then the last few weeks, let's just go buy a team of freshmen. Obviously, that's not what we're going to do, right? But what it means is that recruiting no longer is just about recruiting. It's no longer just about relationships. You need a collective, you need the NIL to supplement your recruiting efforts. And that's just the reality of what we live in, because you can't close every one of these just because you've got great relationships and they want to go to LSU. Because I'll give you an example. Where we see Tyler Miller, relative to revenue sharing, another school might see him much higher because they value him 20%, 30%, 40% more because they need him more. And so their number comes in at X. It doesn't mean we devalued him, but we've got 3 other tackles in our program. And so that's where the rub comes, right? That's where this comes of, well, so-and-so's offering us X, and you're only offering us Y. Well, it has nothing to do with your value. It's just the other program doesn't have a tackle, and they desperately need you as their cornerstone, and so they're going to spend more money. So it's not your market value. It's what they need, and that's where this becomes really, really difficult. Anybody that we've lost in the last few days, it wasn't because we didn't offer money. It wasn't because we didn't recruit them. It was because the value that was meant to them was exponentially more. It wasn't market value. It was exponentially more because it meant they needed that piece, and they were going to do whatever was necessary to get that piece.
Coach, you mentioned you're going to be very aggressive in the portal. Difference makers, when you pinpoint who you want once they're in there, do you have the resources that you need if it's also Ohio State and Oregon and Georgia and those types that also want that player?
Yeah, so that's the bar, right? I mean, it's Oregon, Ohio State, it's Michigan, it's Georgia, Alabama. I could keep naming Notre Dame. I mean, I'll give you all the names. You guys know what they are. But now it's no longer about just your brand. Your brand has to be backed up with the ability to supplement that with dollars, because that's what we're in. And so if you want to get into the portal, if you want to be able to close some of these, you have to have active participation from a donor base. And it can't just be one or two guys. It has to be from all those that want to see the Notre Dames or the Ohio States or the Oregons or the Alabamas do well. They have to be involved. And so that means the LSUs. If they want to be at the top of the food chain, then we have to be involved as well. And that's just the reality of where we are today. And whether we like it or not, it's where it is today.
Coach, right down here, you mentioned with a couple of the defensive guys, just versatility was a word in their speed. Could you talk about maybe the conversations when you sat down with Blake Baker, just about how you wanted to maybe transform this defense to have that sideline-to-sideline speed that a lot of these guys have?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things in play here is that, you saw us play with three linebackers, and we would much rather play with three linebackers, but three linebackers that can do multiple things, that they could, in fact, cover out if necessary. That gives us more options relative to our defensive structure, and i.e. we can get into three down and do some three down. You get stuck a little bit if that linebacker is really just a zone dropper. So these guys can play some man for us. They can rush the quarterback, and that's where we're looking for the body types of Breaker and Ross, and that's where it's starting to kind of morph into the look of the player that we're trying to recruit.
Hey, Coach, if I could ask you a couple. Your view from the get-go has been it's not supposed to be pay-per-play.
Correct.
And do you still kind of feel like these guys are doing anything in exchange for all this money, or do you feel like the spirit is we are paying players to play?
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. We clearly understand that at LSU we have to be in the ball game, but we're certainly going to do it the right way. I can't speak for everybody, but I know how we're going to do it. But look, the incentives that are out there for players to go to XYZ schools to meet that brand kind of platform, they would have to do a lot of things. And maybe they are. I'm not researching them. I know that when we're putting together contracts, they have to meet the performance incentives, and performance meaning not on the field, but what they're asked to do through their NIL. They're telling us that this is going to be monitored by the NCAA. That's what they're telling us. We'll see where that goes.
Keelan Moses, we just went to his signing. He says, "I bleed purple and gold." Perhaps some people offered him more money, but his heart was here. Is that more important these days, the local kids in Louisiana that you can build this roster with who maybe have that sentimental attachment to LSU?
Yeah, and you don't have to take the hometown discount. I mean, you can bleed purple and gold and don't take the hometown discount, because you can be featured in so many other things. You talk about name, image, and likeness. We've got a billionaire right here in the city. We've got multimillionaires right here in the city that are very anxious and very willing to feature those young men and women we've seen prominently in marketing campaigns. We've got Fortune 500 opportunities in not very far from here. So, staying in state, the ability for a kid from this state to capitalize on his brand is so much greater than if he goes somewhere else. And Keelan recognized that, and being from Baton Rouge, how he can use his brand here and really capitalize financially.
Right, when you look at this class, who do you think maybe has the physical, and you also often talk about emotional maturity to maybe play early next year?
Well, I mentioned Carriers Kern. I mean, I felt like physically he might be one of the strongest players that I've recruited at the position in a long time. He has that kind of physical characteristics. I would say Zion Williams is big and physical, a guy that you could plug in immediately. Those are big physical guys. I'd say just because of his length, a DJ Pickett, and his pedigree is a guy that could come in right away. Bordelon is physically as strong as some of the offensive linemen we have. Those are guys physically that can do it. Now, who are the guys that can make the transition that have the physical tools to do it? Now you're talking about Harlem Berry, right? You're talking about Philip Wright. You're talking about skill guys. Can they make that flip and transition? Because they certainly have the skill to do it. But the big physical guys, I would lean on Kern, Bordelon, Zion Williams. Those are guys that physically are ready.
I know whenever you recruit guys and you watch film and you know about them and everything, but when they visit, you see them for the first time. I'm just curious your reaction the first time you saw DJ Pickett.
Yeah, I was surprised by his length. I mean, people were saying 6'4", and you know how that goes, right? You're saying 6'4". I'm like, he's not 6'4". He's not going to be 6'4". He's 6'4". And so I think that at first was a surprise for me that he was actually, watching a guy on film move that way was what really surprised me about him. And then just his engagement with people. I mean, I loved the way he engaged our players, our staff. And never has he been this 5-star disconnected guy. Like, hey, I've arrived. He has been humble. He has been not about himself. He's been about wanting to develop to be the best version of DJ Pickett. And that's why we were in his camp. And we're going to do anything possible to make sure he signed here today, which he did, because we loved the fact that he was humble in all that he was being told about himself. And that's what stood out.
Coach, you mentioned market value and you need active participants from a donor base, not just 2 or 3 guys. Brand name has to be backed with dollars. That was all true 2 years ago, right? I think what you're saying is that it's just multiplying and just getting more complicated.
Yeah, we really didn't have this kind of across-the-board commitment to the financial end of it the way we do now. Schools in the AAC, schools across the country are involved in this as well now. I mean, so you can imagine, some of our guys, they're not only getting hit by SEC and Big Ten schools, but they become the number one priority for the best school in, the Big 12 or the AAC or Conference USA. And the numbers are crazy because that becomes, their 5-star, if you will. So now it's across the board. And sometimes you got to listen to it, and it makes recruiting even more difficult because of that.
Two questions, I think. One real quick. Do you have a number in mind, how many high school players and transfers you'd like to arrive at by the end, or you have to see which of your current players are going to be back?
Well, we're going to welcome over 25 freshmen into this class. I mean, it could go as high as 27, but at least 25 freshmen. So you're going to have 25 freshmen, and then, we have room probably for another dozen in the program, and so, if you're talking about total numbers, you could be between 35 and 37 additions to the program in January. So let's say 25 freshmen, and don't hold me exactly to the number, but 25 freshmen and 12 from the transfer portal.
And you told me once that in this environment, you have to look for where you can find advantages in the chaos. I can imagine there's no coach who likes this whole situation, but do you still feel that way? Do you still feel like you can play, there are things that you can play to your advantage, and if so, how?
Well, I think what you have to be is thinking about how you can get ahead of revenue share. How do you, for example, how do you retain the players on your team and maximize April's revenue share so that, when you get to April, right, and you start to share that revenue piece, let's say it's $13 million, just for a number, right? Say it's $13.5 million. How do you retain players without that being that 13.5, without that being all invested into a small number of players? How do you stretch that out? And you do it by raising money prior to that and getting to those guys through the collective early on. And so being proactive prior to getting into revenue sharing, I think is crucial.
Hey, Coach.
Hey.
With boasting such an impressive class, what is your message directly to the fans that may be disappointed in the decommitments that transpired and some of the players that are planning to enter the transfer portal?
Well, I mean, look, if you're a fan, you got to look at this as the glass half full or is it half empty? This is an outstanding class. Would we have wanted all of the guys? Yeah, we fought hard for all those guys. But I think I laid a pretty good message out to what this recruiting is all about. And those two guys loved LSU. They didn't have much of a choice. And so we're out there fighting and recruiting and putting together a great class, and all these kids wanted to be here. They wanted to be part of LSU because they see something. They felt something that was clear to them. And what was clear to them that this is going to be a championship program, and they want to be part of it. So the message is really clear. In back-to-back years, we've been able to put together elite classes. And we feel like the student athletes know that. They talk to each other. They sense that. And so our fans need to know that. And what finishes it off is that we need to get continued support from our donor base so we can now continue to augment the roster through the transfer portal, which is the other way of building your roster now in this new world that we live in. If we do that, the glass is certainly half full.
Right here, Coach, you mentioned donor base, and then you mentioned a little bit just on the university side of things. Can you talk about just maybe the shift in the alignment? That's a word that's used a lot just from when you first got here, and maybe some of the things that have maybe changed that you can share about from then till now.
Well, I would say it started as, and I don't think LSU's different. I think LSU probably was similar to most, not all, but most. I don't want to give to NIL. I don't want to pay players. I don't want my money to go to, a player. I want it to go to something different. So I think early on, it was education, right? It was educating the donors about what the landscape was of college football and making them understand what a collective was and making them understand what recruiting is, like I've just laid out to you, that we're going to recruit, we're going to put in the time, we're going to get the right young men that want to graduate, that want to play for championships, but we also have to be able to provide them with the NIL resources through our collective so they actually come here, because other schools are going to do the same. So if you want to be in the big poker game, this is what the ante is. And that was educational for our group. And not just LSU, all across the country. I think we've gotten through to that. Now, we still have donors that say, I'm not giving to that. I get it. But we are still in the big poker game. And so we still have to be able to go out and say, we need support so we can continue to build our roster. Because you can't do it playing 5 freshmen and 2 sophomores like we did on Saturday night. You have to be able to play mature players as well. And that's the mix. Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.